Luke 17, 1 to 10. So the first part, it talks about how stumbling blocks will come. It's inevitable that it will come, but woe to one through whom they come. So at first, I've been thinking about it for a while, and I think what it means is that we can choose if we become a stumbling block or not. And I remember Judas. So people say if God is all knowing, wouldn't he know that Judas is gonna betray Jesus? But then why did Jesus that said that it would be better that he not been born, but he needed to do it, otherwise the gospel wouldn't come true or wouldn't be fulfilled, and so on and so forth. So that argument stuck with me for a long time. However, I thought about how if I was Judas, I have the choice, and this is where God's omniscient kind of collides, or we don't know how it works together with human will, but it does. God said that it does. So even though he knows all things, we still have a will. We can choose to betray Jesus or not. We can choose to be a stumbling block or not. Ultimately, it's our choice. So that's why he said that it's woe to the one through whom they come. If you let yourself become a stumbling block to others, if you are Judas and you choose to betray Jesus, even instead of saying no to that temptation, then ultimately you are the person who decides your destiny. It's not that you can't have no say in it, that you're a robot and you have to do it. You were born for that. I don't think that's the case. And so if I think of it as, if you don't do it, someone else will. There will be someone else who will give in to that, and it's still going to play out, but it doesn't have to be you. It's how I read it and how I look at it. And a long time ago, I was just thinking about how the matter between God's omniscience and human will. And because I'm a programmer, or I used to be a programmer, now I'm a software tester. Because I was a programmer, I saw how a long time ago, like maybe 30 some, or no, 20 something years ago, to me AI was just a bunch of if else condition. And so, but then it can play chess, it can make a decision tree, it can look ahead, and if you give it enough resources and it can give it enough time, it can pretty much map out the whole entire gameplay, depending on the move, the whole entire gameplay. So to me, that's well, is God kind of like that? I mean, if he's all knowing, to be all knowing, you just need to know what all possible outcome is for a given decision. And then I read the Bible, I see it's a lot of if else condition, statements. If you do this, then there's a blessing. If you do this, then there's a curse. And so it's really it's like a manual to me, and it's kind of like a piece of code just written in language, human language. And so when I thought about all that, that's how, up to now, that's how I reconcile God's omniscient with human will. We can still choose what move we make, just he knows all the possible outcome. However, I don't know if that is true or not. But for this specific one, I think the takeaway that I have, and I still do, is that we can choose to be a stumbling block or not, and it doesn't have to be us. And I think we are in a world where there's a weed and there's wheat. Do we want to be the weed? Do we want to be the children of Satan? Or do we want to be the wheat, the children of God? We get to choose that by submitting ourselves to a certain master. So if we submit to ourselves to God, then he will be our master and we are the wheat. He will be our father. If not, we choose to submit ourselves to Satan, then that's who we are. And there will be people who will submit to Satan. And not only submit to Satan, there are Satan worshippers, there are Satan, like they do things that they do evil. So that is my take on that. And then after that, so then it says right here, it is better for him to millstone to be hung around his neck, so on and so forth. We should be very careful not to stumble children. And I would add to that, we need to be very diligent in keeping them on the way of God and letting them see God work through us, and letting them experience who God is through our relationship with them. And then it talk about forgiving multiple time. And then the apostle said to the Lord, like, increase our faith. Like, oh man, that's really hard to do. Please help us to do that. And then he responded to that, oh, if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, very small, you can do great things. And then he then talked about how as a slave we should have humility in our heart to know that we are slaves, and that if we follow God's commandments and words, that we are just doing our job. And then we actually need to think about how a slave is, like they serve their master before they take care of their own needs, even though if they just like, came back from the field. And so that part is hard to understand, like the thought flow of Jesus, like why did he say this after everything else? But I think it's a good reminder to us that we need to have a servant's heart. We need to have humility. We need to offer up our life to Jesus, and like God can do great things through us, but we should give him the glory, and we should be humble and say, oh, it's only our duty. However, I wanted to add that later on Jesus did say, I no longer call you slaves or servants, but friends. And so that have to be taken in to, when this, because at this time when things are progressing, not everything is fully revealed, but when Jesus said it is finished and it is done, then that we have to take the totality of scripture into play when we try to understand it.